Alright, hello, welcome to Ben's OP Game Show, recorded live at 3 p.m. Pacific Time every Friday, right here, twitch.tv/TheGameFanatics. On this week's show, we'll be talking about the Dark Souls 3 DLC, the Ringed City, the final piece of DLC, and the final thing we'll probably ever see from Software for Dark Souls. Gonna talk all about that, and Call of Duty World War II, which is harder to say than you'd imagine, and what that could mean, and hopes I have for it as someone who kind of isn't into it but really enjoyed the last Call of Duty. But first, take a look at some of the biggest stories of the week, and this week really had one of the bigger ones in recent memory. We're going to switch over. Switch. Alright, that's enough. That's the last one. I promise that's the last one. Destiny 2 was officially confirmed. Obviously, we knew about this for years and years and years that this was going to happen. It was inevitable. It was in those leaked documents from Activision forever ago. But what's concerning to me, as someone who played the beta and maybe half an hour of the actual game, which is basically just the beta when it came out, this doesn't do anything for me, right? Like, I played that beta, I understood what the game was at launch, and I wasn't really interested. Now I understand 4 expansions have come out, 3 years have gone by. The game has changed, and people have gone from being like, ugh, Destiny to, oh my gosh, Destiny. And that's great. I really am happy for these people who are happy about Destiny 2. But to be honest with you, this trailer is terrible. I don't like it at all. I don't understand the tone of it. It doesn't fit with anything I've played from Destiny. It's way too jokey. It's way trying too hard. And it, as a not someone who knows who these characters are, I'm pretty sure the one jokey guy is someone from the game, but I don't know, right? I don't know. So to get new fans, to get new people into Destiny, the people who played it at the beginning and never came back, this is very not working for me. I don't get it at all. I think it's funny, but I don't think I want the game to be funny, and it doesn't even fit to be funny. It doesn't even make any sense. It's all loot. Like, okay, I get that, but you look at something like Diablo, its campaign isn't some jokey weird thing about loot. Like, what's the game here? You're not showing anything. I understand it's a shooter and everyone knows what it is, but you're not getting anyone with this trailer except for people who are super into Destiny already. And I think you should try and expand that audience, especially since a lot of people, kind of me, played the beta, played the game when it launched, and was like, nah, this isn't it. This is not what I want. And so we end up with this trailer that, this is only for fans, and that's really dumb. I'm also very tired of these CG trailers that don't match the game. Like, the game's not going to be jokey like this, is it? That doesn't even make any sense. It's also no gameplay in this. Were there even cutscenes in Destiny? I don't even fucking know, because this is the problem with the vanilla Destiny. You guys really shit the bed, and now you're telling me this is what Destiny is? Well, that's not the impression I got at all. So it doesn't make any sense. I wrote a couple other things down. Oh, I already got all these. Oh, this is exactly it. And maybe this is me and coming to the humor part of this. I thought Deadpool was fine. I liked it, but I wasn't over the moon with it like everyone else. And this feels like it's trying to be that Deadpool sense of humor or Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's not as good as those. And it's so, well, yeah. And really, guys? Like, it's so stupid. It's not earned. It's not earned at all. I'm coming into this not knowing anything, and if anyone who wasn't a fan of Destiny watched this, they're just confused and mystified that this is a fucking thing. It's so bad. This doesn't make me want to play the game at all. I don't even want to know more about it. I'm only going to watch more about it because I'm like morbidly curious, like, what the fuck is the rest of your campaign for this? Also, can we talk about the logo? It's just god-awful. You made this giant-ass 2 in the most basic bitch font and just stuck it over the word Destiny. And also, as I've been doing this and I'm preparing for the show, I've written Destiny down, I typed it so many times, I now cannot unsee Destiny. The word tiny's in there. I didn't know. Didn't notice. But now I did. Thanks a lot. So I guess to reiterate, what does this mean? Is this going to get new fans? I don't think so. How could it? It should. That should be the marketing here. Your hardcore Destiny people are in. They're already in. Stop preaching to them. You've got them. This, like, does this really make you want to play? None of this is in the game. None of this is any, like, it's so not indicative of the game. It's insulting. It goes back to, I was mentioning the CG trailers. Show some, even if it's a CG trailer, show something that's actually part of the game, like that is sort of what the game is going to be, because this is just some nonsense. Fine, have your nonsense, but I'm not having it. I don't like it at all. I guess everything except for the jokey bits I'm kind of okay with. It just doesn't fit. And maybe that's what gets me about it. It's so jokey. The whole game's about killing people. Maybe it's too many jokes. Everyone's too on board for the jokes about murder. You're not John Wick. John Wick didn't joke around. He's a serious guy. They killed his dog. I don't like it. Nope. Prayer for bad access. Oh, I'll play that. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. It's on PC now. I'm very excited for that. Not at all. Not at all excited. Nope. No. Ba-da-ba-ba. No more of that song. No more. Let's move into something I'm much more excited about. Dark Souls 3, the Ringed City, final piece of DLC, final thing from FromSoft for Dark Souls. And I think, to begin at the end, this is a very fitting final chapter for the Souls games. And in light of Bloodborne, but more specifically Neo, having so recently came out, it is time to let it go. It is time to just, like, you know, give it the Viking funeral, send it off, and fondly remember these the Demon Souls, 4 games and all their DLC, and enjoy it. And as it is, I think it's reached what it can be. We've seen all the things we can see with it. Let's move and stretch the Souls formula into new areas, such as Bloodborne, such as Neo. Those areas much more interesting, and I think have room to grow into something maybe potentially better. Evolve the formula, because I'm not saying the Ringed City was stale. I think the best way to describe the Ringed City is it is the best DLC at certain times, and it is the worst DLC at certain times. It combines all these elements. Like the first hour of it, me dying, is so awesome. It has these moments that I should have seen coming, and these things are like traps that I kept falling into, and I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like, this is incredible. It's playing with me in ways that I've wanted a Souls game to do for a while now, for years, and that's incredible. And then it's also like, a quasi stealth at certain points. I'm like, oh, this is okay, but I don't really know what you're telling me to. I do what? Like, that's not And then, like, as soon as you get past this stealth element right here, well, not right here, there's several of those. As soon as you get past these weird angels and do the boss and go a little further, there's another weird thing that you have to sneak and hide behind cover from another set of arrows. It's just very strange that it kept happening throughout the DLC. And the further I got into it, the more the more I enjoyed it, because the beginning of it is not, in terms of gameplay, the best. I think the enemies, the setups, the bosses, like once you get to the first boss, then it really gets into it. As cool as the setting for the very beginning is, it's not right. Like it doesn't fit right. Why? I just don't. I know I was probably a little underleveled for this with the character I had, but I don't understand why these enemies were so brutal. I'm in basically not full Havel set, but you know, a lot of Havel stuff going on. And these guys just will wreck you. But then you move to the next area and the enemies are like, nah, we don't do that much damage. I'm like, I don't understand the difference between your sword and the next guy's sword. I don't understand the strategy of fighting two quick knights. And then you present me with one slow-moving big guy and think those are equal. Like, they weren't equal at all. So I think it just has these very strange... Like, it's just not balanced in a way that feels right to me. And this is a problem I've had with, quite honestly, every single piece of DLC for Dark Souls, except for the one in the first game, which I thought worked the best as a cohesive part of that game in terms of difficulty and when you can play it. The problem with the Dark Souls 2 DLC and the Dark Souls 3 DLC is that it doesn't fit in the universe. It's like, oh, you want to go somewhere else and do another thing? Go over here. You can access it whenever, but you can't, but you kind of can. Oh, you got to beat the whole game, but we're not going to make it fit. Like, the thing that works so well with Souls is that each part of it is more or less in an order, right? It's not linear. You can do things in Dark Souls 2 and 3 in, varying different ways, but it all ends up being in an order. And having this DLC is completely interruptive of the order that they've made the rest of the game around. So they never quite fit for me. I love these games. I got the platinum in Bloodborne. I bought Dark Souls 1 on PS3 and on PC. I bought Dark Souls 2 on PS3 because I didn't want to wait a month for the PC version, and I bought it again on PC. Like, I'm a big fan here. I've played all the DLC, but I've only ever beaten the first set of Dark Souls 2 DLC. Everything after that has had one boss or something that I couldn't get past, and I was like, I just don't care. I just don't care to play it. It doesn't feel right. I'm not doing enough damage, or it does crazy weird shit, or it's just not a fun fight. Like the reused boss in the Dark Souls 2 DLC that's optional, the reused boss fights. Like, I don't care. Getting there is such a pain in the ass. Why? Who am I proving this to? That I have to play this game? So I feel like all of their DLC falls into that trap of like, why? There's no incentive to do this. There's no gameplay incentive to do this. Why would I even bother? And maybe that's even a different issue altogether than talking about this DLC. And it sucks because this DLC is great, but I hate how it keeps doing, like, the first boss starts off with you're fighting two things. And I hate the 2-on-1 fights. I don't summon people in. I will help other people, but I don't summon them into my own game. So it always means I'm getting flanked by these stupid dragon things, but that fight's not so bad. Then we get to the next official boss fight, not the optional one, which I don't like at all, because it would take like half an hour with my shitty sword, which is another issue. It doesn't matter. The second boss fight summons in someone else who's playing the game to fight you. That's not the problem with this fight, though. Like, I'm fine with that. I was fine with that in Demon Souls. It did a similar thing. Dark Souls 2 had one that did that as well. The Mirror? What was his name? Lightning Man Night? Yeah, sure, let's call him that. There was lightning in the room. But the problem with this is there's another dude in the room just like throwing knives at you. And the guy who's summoned in gets other things that target you. And so everything is just chip upon chip of this damage. Constantly. And it's infuriating. I can't stand that boss fight. I went offline, so I didn't have to worry about the randomness of other players. Not because I was tired of fighting other players. I would have gladly fought them and probably lost. But I was tired of losing to that other guy in the room that was just an NPC because he has so much HP. He's not even the boss, and he's just throwing fucking ninja stars at you the entire time, and he's super aggressive. And then if you wait too long, another one shows up, and it's like, fuck this fight. You had this really cool setup of me just fighting another player, and then you threw in a bunch of other nonsense. And that's what I mean when I say this is a great piece of DLC and a terrible piece of DLC, because it really hedges the line there. Right before that too is this really long gauntlet section of maybe like 20-30 enemies, and you could really not know where the next bonfire is, and you could almost completely miss it. And it's just so fucking long, but it's also a really cool gauntlet. But it's one of those things where once you've died at it a couple times, like, why am I fighting everything? Why? There's no reason to fight everything. It takes forever to get where I need to go. I'm just going to run by everyone. And as people who play Souls games will know, that's totally viable. You can just run straight through everything. If you know what you're doing and you know the path and where you need to go, yeah, just run through. Most things probably won't follow you all the way through. And since you're running just to get your souls back and just to kind of keep exploring, it's almost worth it. Like, I feel like that's so stupid. Like, that doesn't... I shouldn't... A viable strategy should never be running through it on my first attempt, on a not speed run, on a not doing weird shit run. Like, but that's how it feels. That area really feels like it needs a shortcut. It needs something else there, because fighting everything and going through this whole mystery maze isn't that it's like super difficult. It's that if you want to do it and not die and get whatever, you have to do it so slowly and so one-on-one. And there's so many guys in the way. It's just like, this is an awesome gauntlet you made that really needed a halfway mark. It really does. And I don't know. You could say, oh, you're not good, get good at the game and whatever. Man, I did every level in Neo. I thought the game wasn't that hard at all. I'm good at these games, pretty decent. I think my build here is really shitty. That's not helping me. It also doesn't help that you go straight from Neo into Zelda, into Nier, into this, back to Souls. Like, it just doesn't... It's a weird... To me, a couple hours to get back into Souls, which is fine. But I don't understand. There's these moments of, like, one-on-one duels in a weird swamp area against a guy who looks like Ornstein with an armor that looks like that. And it's an awesome fight. It's just a really cool fight. But, like, I don't know how you could make this awesome Dark Souls moment surrounded by moments of, like, and Patches is here, and that's cool. And that area he's in where he finally does his little Patches thing is not interesting. And I don't know. There's this moment, fucking hair everywhere. There's this moment where it feels like a retread in a really good way of, oh, this is the area from Dark Souls 2. And you're like, oh, that's super cool. And like, oh, I like seeing this area kind of rethought out in a new way. But then there's kind of an area that looks like Dark Souls 1, but it kind of doesn't, but it isn't. Like, in a way that Dark Souls 3 proper felt like it was revisiting some areas and making them lesser. Specifically, I'll always bring up the lava fire area in Dark Souls 3 as trying to be like, hey, look, we got a lava area. And I'm like, hey, look, it's not as good, like nowhere near as good as Dark Souls 1. So I don't know why you're trying so hard. This DLC felt not like it was trying hard to be those other areas, because it succeeded in the first one. But then towards the end, I was like, why didn't you? Why didn't you just straight up go, this is 500 years before or after Dark Souls 1 set in the same place and just move some things around. Like, why didn't you just do that? That's so much more interesting to me as a big fan than what you ended up doing as just like, here's new stuff that's not the same, but is the same. But is it the same? Like, I just don't care. And it also brings back to the point of people love the lore and the storytelling, or the lack of storytelling, which is environmental storytelling now, in this game and in the Souls games. And I like it too, but I'm not one to read all the little weapon shit. I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing that. I think it's too vague for me to be like, if it was just a little less vague, I might look at it and think, okay, what is it? What's really going on here? But it's so vague, I just don't care. Really. Like, I care about the kind of overall story, but I just don't, like, I just don't care. It's this point, I'm like, is this the same universe as one, but it's the future, but the ash is all here? I'm like, I just don't know. And the game, quite frankly, is not trying to make me know. So the basic surface level stuff is all I'm getting, and it's fine. You know, I'm sure there's some cool stuff. Like, there's some cool stuff at the end, because I did eventually get past that stupid boss. That's, you know, very indicative of, like, really cool Souls moments and things, but I can't help but feel like this game really needs just a smidge more story. Just a smidge. Not a lot. Just a little bit more. I think Dark Souls 2 kind of got that better. Or at least maybe Dark Souls 3 proper. Maybe Dark Souls 1. Maybe we've just been chasing Dark Souls 1 this entire time, and that's the best one. You know, maybe that's what this is. I think that could be what this is. I don't know. It's great and not great. And I think it's worth it to play it. And I think my build's terrible. I don't know how. I feel like I haven't had a fun build since Dark Souls 1. There's too many weapons. That was something Bloodborne did, which really made it interesting. Like, you can beat the game with your starter weapon, not because you're trying to be cool and beat the game with your starter weapon, but because it was viable. And, like, they just, you know, here's 10 weapons in all of Bloodborne, and they're all good in their own different ways, and it's just choice. It's just how your preference, right? That's so much more interesting to me than, oh, here's 16 broken swords in my inventory. What am I gonna do with this garbage? Like, no one's beating the game with a fucking broken sword. If you want a challenge, beat the game with just punches, okay? I don't need a broken sword. I don't need all those shitty weapons that are just gumming up the works of the rest of it. And I also miss the upgrading. I really do think this is the best. And I kind of said this earlier, so I'll say it again. After Neo, after playing this DLC, I look back at Neo more fondly. I already really loved Neo, but I look at it more fondly because it broke conventions enough to be like, oh, there's a lot additive to this experience that is better. It does things better, does things worse, but does things better too. And I think Souls can really take a moment, do Bloodborne 2, and then go in a completely different direction. Make a Armored Core, whatever they always did. Make a different game altogether. Make a Zelda-like game. Make a Castlevania-like game where, you know, it's more like Dark Souls 1, but it's maybe not as difficult, and it has the open world that you're exploring around. Like a third-person Metroid Prime is how I'll describe it, with the abilities and all that. Make a third-person shooter. Like, do whatever you want to do. I think they're done. Like, this really feels like they're done here. And I wish it was sad, right? I wish it was a bummer moment of, oh, we're not getting any more Dark Souls. But after I played 3, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done. And then the first DLC was fine and good. And I think this DLC is better than the first one. And this DLC is just like, okay, goodbye. Goodbye, Dark Souls. I love you. I've had enough. We can move on. This is the breakup at the restaurant that's very amicable. But I don't need you anymore. I still have my memories of you, and I still have Dark Souls 1 through 3 and Demon Souls. And you know, the new hotness, Bloodborne, which please God, Bloodborne 2 is here, and I think that moves the formula more forward than this, which is such a retread. It felt so kind of old and just stale. But considering saying that, a stale Dark Souls is still better than like half the games that come out. So that's not that big of a negative. This is that boss fight, which I eventually did figure out. But I always feel like I have this shitty weapon. So I'm using this like stick. I feel like everyone else, like I'll help someone fight the boss, right? And they'll be fighting the boss. And they'll hit him for 500 damage. And I'm over here like 100, 100, 100. And they're just like 5. Like, Jesus, where do I get that weapon? Maybe I just don't understand. That's possible. But I don't know. I'm missing something. Clearly I'm missing something, which is fine. And this build is kind of fucked from the get-go. This build was made, it was a second playthrough to get ready for the first DLC. When I got to the first DLC, I was maybe a little under-leveled, but I didn't think the first DLC was very difficult until the latter half, and then it like spikes. I still never beat the final boss of that DLC, never beat the final boss of this DLC. I got very close and was like, nah, I'm done. You know, I'm playing Nier, I'm playing Zelda, I'm playing Mass Effect. I'm not going to spend 6 hours or even 2 hours, even 1 hour. I did spend 1 hour. Another hour fighting this final boss, trying to beat it. Like I'm just not going to. You know, if there was nothing else out right now, sure. But that is not the case. And it wasn't good enough. The fight was, again, because my shitty stick-ass weapon, I go from the first DLC to this one. I don't even remember what the hell's going on. I had to play through. That was the other thing too. I had to play through not the final boss of the game, but the 2 bosses before that and the areas accompanying them. I had to play through those areas to get to this DLC. I think that stuff, just as good, if not better, in almost every way than this DLC. The setting and some of the lore stuff is cooler in this, but as a game, on a gameplay level design level, bosses, the end of Dark Souls 3 is extremely strong. From Dancer to the end, extremely strong. And this is weaker. I feel like with the theme of fire in this game, we really need the survivor torch that just gets like, and it gets extinguished. That's how this needs to end. So yeah, I beat the first. You beat the first Dragon Man, and then you fight the second Dragon Man, which is actually not that crazy of a fight. It's a good fight. I think this fight's super good. That's the other thing too. Is not to bring up Bloodborne again. My eye twitches. It's been twitching for a couple of days. I might be dying. Bloodborne and the Bloodborne DLC. That DLC, the Old Hunters, is better than any Souls DLC by a fucking mile. Like, it's not even close. So it's real tough to be like super jazzed about DLC. Like, that DLC was the benchmark for DLC in the Souls universe. And I think the first Dark Souls, that DLC, is the closest thing we've gotten. I also really like the first DLC content for Dark Souls 2, the little kind of Mayan temple area or whatever it is. I like that quite a bit. This is Dragon Man. He's my friend now. He doesn't really pay attention. I just hit him. You can kind of see the health bar. It's underneath my stupid graphics. Anyway, it's good. That dragon's mean. He punched. Also, he's not a dragon. I keep calling it a dragon. Not a dragon. Nope. All right, so I don't normally talk about Call of Duty, but I did, as this video is about, or the video in the background is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. I did play Infinite Warfare, and I rather enjoyed its single player portion, and the rumors of Call of Duty going back, well, they're pretty strong rumors, going back to World War II very much interest me. I kind of skipped, I don't know, 6 Call of Duty's games. I played Modern Warfare 2. I played Modern Warfare 1, Modern Warfare 2, and then this one. So I skipped a lot of them, just as a, reference point here. And I after Infinite Warfare, I'm definitely interested in what they have to say and what's going on. And here's what I would like to see them do to speed this up, to speed this along. If it's in World War II, I want to see it be different. I don't want it to be storming Normandy. No. I don't want it to be Battlefield 1's vignettes of separated little stories all about the war. No. What Call of Duty does best, and what they've all kind of done, as far as I know, is follow that soldier to the end. Or when they die a third of the way through, and then you play someone else and follow them to the end. So I want to see that. And what I'd also would love to see, and I don't think they'd do this, but I want them to go crazy with this. I want them to create an alternate history of World War II, where the Allies lose. And that's the game. And like, you're playing through this COD campaign, and halfway through it, you're looking at these events and you're going, this is not how the war went. If you know, or it starts to become obvious, it's like, man, we're really losing here. What's happening? And I think it would be incredibly interesting to have, like, the Allies lose, but Hitler dies still. And so there's this world in turmoil at the end of the game. And you can create this universe that is now the World War II sequels, in the same way if we had Black Ops 1, 2, 3. This is another sub-franchise of alternate history. Like, here's 1950, after the Allies lost, but Hitler's dead, so like the Nazis lost power, and like Russia took, and like Japan's taken over still more of China. Like, there's all this weird stuff going on, and you're fighting these more guerrilla tactics missions. I want to see that. Now, it is vaguely similar to Wolfenstein, but no crazy technology. Very grounded, very different. And I would love to see them be bold enough to just, like, no, that we're telling an alternate history story. And we're going weird places with it. We're going to where, like, half the United States, not to be man in the high castle, but half the United States is taken over by another country. Or the United States succeed from themselves and like 2 separate countries. Like, all this cool history stuff you can play with. And I fear that they're just gonna play it super safe and like, oh, this is exactly what happened. This is the story we're telling, and this is World War II. Like, but we've seen World War II. We've done that. I think by having it be crazy town, and then the next game is like defending all like weird shit. Like England from Japan, like just weird scenarios that would probably not happen. I'm not a historian, but I don't think that would happen. But if the Russians are taking over more of Europe, and maybe there's a split within the Allies, super cool stuff here, because there was a Cold War. Like, what would happen? Like the same thing that happened with that loss of power from Third Reich going away, and now the Allies like taking over, that led to the Cold War. We now have that situation, but Germany didn't lose. They just lost their leader and are just kind of confused. And so they can use that as a rallying point for another counterattack. Like, there's all these different angles we can take and make something that's old and with that familiar weaponry and setting, but telling a completely new story and shape it. Like, you can do this for the next 10 years, right? And just completely shape, like, oh, this is the game in 1960. Like, what's going on in that alternate universe in 1960? Well, 1970. Like, you start steering things and going through history and being like, oh, this was only invented because we needed to invent it for, Vietnam, but that didn't happen, so we don't have that technology. Or we invented it sooner because we needed it here. Like, there's all these interesting things that could happen with it, and I'd love to see them do something like that. They're not going to. They're not going to. This is way too home fronty. But man, is that more interesting to me. And I it was something that just popped into my head as I was thinking about like World War II. I'm like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do that makes it different from the first 4 Call of Duty games that were in World War II? What are they going to do with that? You can't just go back. You have 5 games like that. And is it the greatest hits of all those games? And I think not by setting it in space, which is weird. I think you can take it another place and not have it be Wolfenstein or Man in the High Castle. Like, really be this war story that's alternate. Now, the other way I could see it going, which would be also kind of as cool, is just following a soldier for 10 hours or 8 hours or whatever as they go through different parts of the war and saving people and seeing the horrors of the war. That can really be done in a more believable way now because of technology, because of stuff like Battlefield 1, which I don't think did a super amazing job with all its little stories. They were so fractured. But they can do something with it. And I'm very interested in seeing what they do because space really got me. I'm telling you, taking 5 years off from a franchise, refreshing. Really refreshing. It's a great idea. You don't need to buy every game if you don't want to. You don't have to just because you have before. And it's really nice to come back in and have that great Call of Duty gameplay. Completely new setting. Fun little time. It's a great game. Like, Infinite Warfare is fantastic. I think it's better than Titanfall 2. I think it's better than Battlefield 1 in terms of a single player story. Like, bar none. It's way better than either of those games. To me. Obviously, it's my opinion. Whose else would it be? That kind of annoys me. There's a lot of this, oh, in my opinion, when some people say stuff. And I'm like, well, who else's opinion would it be? Who else is talking here? Why would you be saying someone else's opinion? It's obviously yours. You don't need to preface it. Anyway, that's the kind of Call of Duty I'd like to see. Either that, alternate history World War II, or it's World War II in space. This level also, people raved about how cool this wasn't as cool as people said. It looks fancy, but you're shooting so many things. There's all this other shit going on. You don't got time for the fancy sun. You don't got time for that. Alright, that's it. That's the show for this week. A little shorter. There's not a lot going on. I'm trying to get through Mass Effect very slowly. About 21 hours into Mass Effect Andromeda. I really like it. Really, really like it. Trying to get through Nier still. Kind of took a break from it. Came back to it. Really love that game. Love that game. So good. I'm maybe 70, 80 hours into Zelda. I want to finish that. And then I'm looking ahead to the future. And there's Yooka-Laylee in, a week and a half. And I kickstarted that game, so I'm getting it. Like, it's just going to show up one day. That's great. And then there's Prey at the beginning of May. And I'm like, man, I need to get through some of these games. They're really piling up. This is not good. This is not good for me. I can't have the game pile. But it's a good problem to have, I think. That's it. This is a show every Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/thegamefanatics. I go into whatever the hell I want. Random news stories, reviews, opinions, whatever. I'm back on my channel, twitch.tv/BenReacts. I am streaming, I'm starting Mario Maker again, starting to stream that again. I basically streamed Zelda all of March and still haven't beaten it. And still am like, come on. So, but back to Zelda back to Mario Maker and Zelda on Wednesday. And that's it. Then the show. And then Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Call of Duty, not in World War II. No? Look at them. They're not in World War II. What's that about? Oh no. That was a really good game. Okay, that was a really good game. Way better than it had any right being. My eye is still twitching. Big fan. Big fan of my eye twitching. Thanks, eye. Dick.